Joining us now on the Boardwalk on the hotline from The Athletic, covers the NFL and college football. He's one of my favorites. Emory Hunt always has great insights on all of the prospects that come into the NFL, and he joins us now on 97.3 ESPN. Emory, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine, man. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you jumping on. So, obviously there's been a lot of talk about the NFL draft, but we got to start in our backyard with the Eagles because a lot of people have a lot of varying opinions. So, obviously, right off the top rope, love to know your perspective on the Eagles draft overall and your thoughts on, they walked away with multiple receivers, a quarterback in the second round, multiple linebackers. It feels like the Eagles took care of a lot of crossing of T's and dotting I's over the 3 days.
Yeah, I think when you look at how they were able to accumulate talent, at certain positions in depth, that's always a great thing. So you can't knock them for that. You look at Jalen Reagor in the first round, giving them a first-round receiver. They still quietly have Alshon Jeffrey on the roster. How long that's going to be, we'll wait and see. But I think what the Eagles are doing, they trust guys that they've developed and cultivated to take bigger strides and steps in this season. So maybe that's why they didn't target certain positions so early. But you like how overall they added depth at linebacker. They got Kayvon Wallace, who I really like as a combo safety, can play that Malcolm Jenkins role a little bit. And you talk about the quarterback that they got in round two. I thought they got great value in round two because that's a first-round talent that they got at quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who should have gone in the first round. The Eagles got him in round two. So I thought it was a solid draft for Philly.
What do you say to the people who say the Eagles should have used that second-round pick on a player who's going to be, quote-unquote, more of a contributor like a wide receiver instead of Hurts in the second round?
Well, I can understand both schools of thought. I can understand that aspect of it. Like, man, they could have used an additional wide receiver, but you also don't want to stunt the growth of guys that you drafted last year, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and, we saw Shelton Gibson, who's been with this team a couple of times. Greg Ward stepped up a little bit. So you don't want to stunt the growth of those guys. So I understand why the Eagles decided to go with Hurts, but I also understand why the fans would say, hey, we had a chance because we don't know if we're going to keep Alshon Jeffrey. We don't know if we're going to, have Deshaun Jackson healthy. So why not double down on receiver like the Raiders did in this draft and continue to stockpile talent with that position? So I understand both sides of the argument.
Emory, Jalen Hurts is the story now, and it's kind of unfair to Jalen Reagor, but regardless, this is the reality of professional football and reactions to the NFL draft. What do you think is the number one reason the Eagles decided to draft Hurts? Is it security blanket for when Carson gets hurt? Is it immediate impact on the field in different ways this season? Like, how, in your mind, do you think the Eagles assessed the decision to pick Hurts?
That's a great question. I think they don't want to get caught in a situation like we've seen him get caught in when Wentz gets hurt, if he gets hurt. And they had a chance to beat Seattle last year in that playoff game up until the end. If they just had a little bit more juice at quarterback, and we now know that McConnell was playing hurt in that game. So I could see it from an insurance standpoint. I could see it from a talent standpoint. Hurts, to me, is a first-round talent. The Chargers, I thought, whiffed by taking Justin Herbert 6th overall. What does he do better than Jalen Hurts other than be tall? So I felt like the Eagles saw a talented starting-level quarterback there in round two. Why not take him? Because that's part, two of the talent acquisition part that I liked about the draft. And third, it's an asset, pick. Because if Hurts does what Hurts has done his entire career, play extremely well in a limited opportunities he's going to get, he's going to probably get a ton of preseason game reps. He's going to get some action when the Eagles are up ahead big or down big. And if he can just cultivate all that game tape into, attractive, tape for a team that's desperate for a quarterback. We saw teams make trades in the preseason for quarterbacks when quarterbacks got hurt. And, having a guy like Hurts who can make it an 11-on-11 game, which will open up your run game, which will open up the tight ends to be even more dangerous than they already are on this roster with Carson Wentz. So I get it from a talent and also an asset standpoint because they can then flip him later on for a pick or even a player. So it's day after the draft. Folks are emotional, but when you take emotion out of it, you could then see a better plan start to formulate and why they went ahead and took Hurts when they did.
Emory, what do you think the likelihood is, and this is a really tough hypothetical question, but what do you think the likelihood is today of Hurts actually being the franchise quarterback in Philadelphia, whether that's in 3 years, 4 years? Listen, obviously, if he steps in and he develops and down the road, if he gets better, the answer is yes. But just right now, what do you think the likelihood is of the Eagles thinking, 2024 comes around, I think Jalen could be our new guy?
I think it's possible because you look at his skill set and you look at what they want to do offensively and how well they are able to cultivate athleticism at that position. Now, Wentz is what they chose initially, but it was funny how Foles kind of looked better operating the offense. But the offense runs better when you have an athlete like Wentz at the position because it just changes things. And so I could see that with Hurts. And maybe they say, okay, well, we've already invested enough in Wentz to where we're going to give him the 2024, but we can't trust him past that because of the prior injuries he's had every season. So maybe we have to get a backup plan in place to where we can train, grow him, and groom him for 2 to 3 years. And when it's time to make the decision, do they extend Wentz a second time? Maybe they can just cut bait and move on. Or no one's talking about this. What if they view Wentz as the asset piece? As far as we can probably get a lot of value for this guy while he's high, and then we have our guy in Hurts in the backup role. So there's all kind of ways they could look at it, but I think they're going to ride this Wentz thing out for at least, the 2024 season, continue to have Hurts on the roster and groom him, develop him. And if Wentz gets hurt one more time, they're probably not going to give him that second contract extension.
Emory Hunt joining us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at FBall Game Plan for all of your college football and NFL analysis. Emory, if we could get a couple of thoughts on the other picks the Eagles made, because I know for some people the emphasis may be on Hurts, but there were other players selected in this draft. I wanted to get your opinion, first of all, on the 3 wide receivers. Rager in the first round, Hightower in the 5th, and then Watkins in the 6th. So it seems like the Eagles, for all intents and purposes, answered the specific need of they needed speed at receiver, and they got not 1 but 3 speedsters as well as trading for Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah, I think the speed is obviously what they want to address in this draft, and Hightower is a fast guy. Watkins is a speedy guy, and Rager has pretty good speed and explosiveness. So Rager I like because he's a guy that can step in right away and play inside as a slot receiver. He could also be a flanker if you want him to. So he has some position flexibility. He's a catch and run guy. So when you have guys like that, it doesn't take deep balls to really get them going. They can catch that short pass and make their way through traffic and get to the end zone. So you like that about his game. Hightower and Watkins, I think, are more special teamers types. That can help out initially on special teams first while being spot players. Because of their speed, they're more limited in what they bring to the table from a, tools standpoint is essentially one thing that they do really well. But adding Rager along with the growth of Arcega-Whiteside and now bringing Goodwin, you hope he's healthy, and you still have Greg Ward who shows some heart, and Philly guys, Philly fans love the heart that players show. He showed that last year. It makes for an intriguing training camp to watch these guys get out there and play ball. And you still, again, the big wild card are Alshon Jeffrey and also Deshaun Jackson. You get Jackson back healthy, and if Jeffrey is still around, you have enough to where you can really cause some problems.
And then on the flip side, defensively, they picked up linebacker Davion Taylor from Colorado, Kayvon Wallace from Clemson. 2 guys who are versatile guys. They're both phenomenal athletes. What kind of fit do you think those guys can make at the NFL level?
Well, Kayvon Wallace was my number 3 rated combo safety, which means he can play corner, safety, free or strong, so he could be a move piece, kind of what they lost in Malcolm Jenkins. Now, Jenkins was playing corner at that juncture of his career, but he came into the NFL as a corner. So Wallace is a guy that can play all across the secondary, has really good football IQ, and I see a role for him early on as a player. Taylor has legitimate speed, and speed changes things. It changes how as a former running back, when you're trying to get to the outside or try to beat a linebacker to an angle, you have a linebacker in Taylor that can beat you to the spot. It changes how you approach your job as a running back. So I love that speed that he brings. He's probably their fastest linebacker. I think he has a chance to start at the outside linebacker spot. He'll compete, obviously, with Jatavis Brown or someone like that. But I think that's a really good pick for Philadelphia. I do like how, Taylor went early, round 3, which speaks volumes of how the NFL thought about him because, again, that speed he has at the second level, you want to keep that on the field to combat today's passing attacks.
Outside of Philadelphia, there's so many questions that I want to ask you here, Emory, but what was maybe the biggest surprise to you in the NFL draft as a whole, or particularly maybe the first round?
The biggest surprise was, how the NFL talked all that stuff, and the people wrote all these articles about how Lamar Jackson was changing the way people perceive the quarterback position, and then they go right ahead and take Justin Herbert 6th overall and have Jalen Hurts fall around 2, just forgetting everything they just watched this past season. That's one thing. But the other thing was how a team like New Orleans, you look at the Saints, you look at how they ended their last 2 playoff runs, against the Rams and last year against the Vikings. You did not come away from both of those playoff games thinking, man, the Saints really need a right guard. That's something that you did not say when you watched the play. You came away saying, man, they need some help opposite of Michael Thomas. Man, they need some help in the secondary at corner. They may even need a quarterback because Drew Brees' arm isn't what it used to be. Not one point during those games you saw, man, they needed to really address their right guard situation. That's why they lost those 2 playoff games and didn't go to the Super Bowl. The Saints go ahead on and not only just make that move, but then they trade the remaining parts of their draft to take Adam Troutman, the tight end. I like the pick, love the player. So they had no picks going into, day 3. They trade back into the draft, giving up 2021 draft capital for Tommy Stevens. Now, what made this interesting was that earlier that day, I got lectured by many Saints fans and some Saints beat writers that they already had the next Steve Young on the roster. So there was no need for them to draft a quarterback or sign a quarterback. And all they did was trade back into the draft to take a guy that's just like Taysom Hill and also sign Jameis Winston. So I have some serious questions about what the Saints did in the draft and how they just now gave Taysom Hill all that money to be, not the next Steve Young. Someone said, well, maybe they wanted to, not move him at quarterback because he helps out as a receiver. So wait, is he Steve Young or is he Jerry Rice? Because I get confused at what a lot of these fans are thinking Taysom Hill really is for a guy that plays 10 plays a game.
Make sure you follow him on Twitter for all of your NFL draft insights for more information just like that at FBall Game Plan. Also, check out his YouTube channel where he breaks down film and more. You can check the link out at the Twitter account at FBall Game Plan, Football Game Plan on YouTube as well. He is Emory Hunt from The Athletic. And as always, as Eddie guest us, he appeared here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Emory, appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.